Hi, welcome to Bible History, man. The reason I'm doing a bonus episode is because I'm afraid, in the interest of time in my regular episode, I was a little vague. I said that it didn't quite work out, the timing, for the Exodus with the 19th Dynasty. And for those of you who want to know a little bit more about that timing and exactly how that works, that's what this bonus episode is for. If you're fine with the vagueness, you go right ahead and just watch the other one, and that should be sufficient. But for those of you who want the inside story, this episode is for you. So, first of all, the biblical record. It says that they were building the city of Pi Ramses. And it's possible that's because it was named after the pharaoh, Ramses. Or it could be because that means son of Ra. And all pharaohs could be seen as the son of Ra. But that's why people like to assign it to the 19th dynasty because of that. So, first of all, I'd like to talk about the biblical account in Exodus and what it requires to have the right timing, and then we can talk about the 19th dynasty and why it doesn't fit, possibly, with the biblical record. So first of all, the Bible tells us that there arose a Pharaoh who knew not Joseph. And this Pharaoh who knew not Joseph is going to give a command that the Hebrew children are going to be tossed in the Nile, just all the little boys. And so, then Moses goes in the Nile, and 40 years later, according to the Bible, he is going to kill an Egyptian, and he's going to be forced to flee to Midian. And then he's going to go there, and 40 years later, he's going to learn that Pharaoh who sought his life has died. So that's the second important Pharaoh, is Pharaoh who sought his life. And then after that, the Pharaoh that sought his life, who just died, that gets to be the Pharaoh of the Exodus. Now, according to the Bible, those are 40-year spans. 40 years between birth and when he slays the Egyptian and is forced to flee, and 40 years when he finds out the Pharaoh that sought his life was dead and he returns. Now let's look at the 19th dynasty. The first Pharaoh of the 19th dynasty is Ramses the First. Ramses the First is going to be the vizier of the former dynasty, and we're not going to get into what happened, but he's only going to reign for 2 years. And I hope you can see why, even if you ignore the 40 years, because, there's a lot of 40 years going on here, we're not going to be able to see Moses rising up and killing an Egyptian and fleeing. I hope we can agree on that one. And so we move on to the next Pharaoh, and that's Seti. Seti is going to last for 11 years, which means that if Seti is the Pharaoh who dies, so that Ramses II, who comes after him, can be the Pharaoh of the Exodus, that means that before he turns 13, Moses has to kill an Egyptian, flee to Midian. He needs to rescue the daughters of the priest of Midian from shepherds, marry Zipporah, and have a son, in order to find out that it's time for him to go back and let my people go. Now, this is not impossible, because according to Jewish tradition, bar mitzvah at 12, he could have had a combination bar mitzvah and marriage to Zipporah, and there would have been, a whole year if he went into the drink on day one of Ramses I for him to be able to find out that Seti was dead. Now, if you want to take this view, you're just going to need to radically change exactly how you visualize Moses when he goes back to ask Pharaoh to let his people go. No? Okay, well, Ramses II, for him to be the Pharaoh who dies so that Moses can go back, we have plenty of time, even for the 40 years. You see, Ramses is going to rule for 66 years. And if you combine that with the 13, that gives you 79, which means that Moses is that's just chef's kiss for him to be the Pharaoh that dies, right? But this introduces a brand new problem. You see, if Pharaoh is going to be, Pharaoh Ramses II is going to be the Pharaoh who dies, and Moses goes back, he's got plenty of time to kill an Egyptian, and then for Ramses to die and for him to head back. The Pharaoh of the Exodus then would be the guy who follows Ramses, which is a guy named Merneptah. But we have a little problem with that as well. You see, Merneptah has a victory stele. And in his 5th year, he is going to go to the land of Canaan, and he's going to record victories in battle that he is going to enjoy against a number of enemies, one of which is going to be Israel. Now, this victory stele can be found in a museum in Cairo, so it's very difficult to ignore, which means that in order for Merneptah to be the pharaoh of the Exodus, Moses would have to find out that Ramses II died, travel to Egypt, tell him, "Let my people go," and then he would have to have the 10 plagues, the Passover, and then he would have to cross out of Egypt into the Promised Land. And when they get there, that generation would have to fear and not be able to cross over. And so they would have to wander in the desert for 40 years, have that entire generation die in the wilderness. And then they would have to take the land of promise. They would have to fight both of the coalitions, both the northern and southern coalition. And then they would have to divide up, move into the land, and take over so they can be established in the land by the 5th year of Merneptah. And it raises one final problem. And that problem is, how did Merneptah, after having his entire army destroyed in the Red Sea, where do you get another army to go on this victorious tour of battle? Just no end of problems with the 19th dynasty. I hope you see. Now, go read your Bible. For the glory of God.